Welcome to Meet the Creators, a podcast dedicated to the art of business and the business of art. Meet the creative minds behind marketing campaigns, commercials, business, and art. Tune in to better understand the value of creative minds in marketing and business as we build the bridge between business and creative artists.
Hello, we are back again. Welcome back to Meet the Creators, and we have our dear friend and advisor, Young Han, on today. Young, can you give us a little intro about who you are and what you do?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, very excited to be here. And as you mentioned, I am a business advisor or a business coach, and I help businesses basically operationalize themselves and help them create clarity around their objectives and figure out how we can break down large scale strategies into bite sized tasks and activities to get to point A to point B as fast as possible.
Awesome. Um, Before we jump in, though, I kind of want to throw a little bit of a curveball because we
Go for
go
it.
we go way back, even
Yeah.
before you and I both had these businesses that we're in now. Can you explain to people how we met and how our, I guess, partnership and friendship came to be?
Yeah, it's very fun to think about it. Like in hindsight, I was actually reflecting as we rounded the corner on the new year, and just like thinking about all the things that have been so fun last year, and all the things that I want to accomplish this year. And thinking about my relationship with you and Flippers is like definitely a very interesting one. And so it's kind of funny that you asked me that question. Yeah, I used to work at a small coffee company called Phil's Coffee. It's pretty big now, and they're fairly large and national as we speak. But we met, I think, 7 or 8 years ago when I was there running community efforts and inevitably marketing as well, and a bunch of other stuff too. But I think we mostly met when I was doing marketing stuff there. And it was because I was trying to figure out how to best communicate to new staff members and then also new communities as we were starting to expand nationally. We have a really, really very cultish following in San Francisco, but it's hard to communicate that kind of feeling and persona, um, to new places that have never seen us, right? Like Chicago or DC. Like, why would they care, right? It's just a San Francisco-based coffee company, and so we wanted to build out some sort of video that would actually show who we were, what we did, not only to new customers, but also to the staff that we had to recruit at all these places, and really explain the vibe and the people that we were trying to attract. And that's how we started working together. So we worked together on building that Phil's Coffee story video, and that's kind of like the start and inception of our relationship. And I'd say that the relationship started there, but it continued on even well after. We stayed in touch, and obviously we hit it off professionally, but we also hit it off personally, and we stayed in touch for many, many years. And I, about a year and a half ago, or no, almost 2 years now. Wow, time is flying. 2 years ago, right with the first lockdown, I started a consulting business, and I was starting to look at different people that I can help and support, and just trying to figure out what I was doing really. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing as a consultant and as an entrepreneur. And um, I was meeting a lot of people, and then we caught up. We did a catch up call in San Francisco at a Phil's actually.
At
And
Phil's,
we,
yeah.
yeah, at Phil's, which was very funny, very full circle there. And we were able to catch up and touch base about the business, what I was building, what you're building. And we're like, hey, let's try to see if we can help each other grow, and if I can help you guys grow, which wasn't necessarily the norm for me, right? Because I think I was actually focused mostly on tech startups and kind of being in that space of like venture capital, venture backed tech startups. But um, I was very interested because I've always thought that video production was cool, and I always thought that you and your crew were really hip and cool. So I was like very interested in working with you guys because I always like secretly want to be an artist, and I think and we talk about it now when we go to these meetings, when we do leadership meetings. It's really funny because I'm always battling the artist and like being more business minded, but it's funny to talk about the fact that I think I was drawn to the fact that you guys were artists and I wanted to be one, and I thought there was a lot of synergy but interest there. And so we decided to work together, and we've just been like we've just been grinding ever since. It's been going good, and it's been super fun. I don't know how much more you want to share, but
No.
that's kind of the story that I think that led us to this place here now. And now We are working on Flipbirds together on the second year for me, and
Second
we
year
had
for us too, because we're only two.
oh, that's right, that's right. So
Yeah,
I think I joined a little after you guys started, right? So it wasn't like that much longer. Yeah,
right
but
before
I
the pandemic.
that's right. So yeah, it's been a really fun year, and now I'm excited for the second year. I think we're gonna do really big things.
Totally. That
Yeah.
actually, it's a perfect setup because I was wondering how I was going to bring it back, but the difference in our styles, I think we learned a lot from each other over the course of, the last year, 2 years. And you have implemented something that we had never heard of, which is operational rigor.
Yeah.
And coming, strictly from the creative side of things, it's always been a challenge for us because business has always ebbed and flowed, and we never felt like we had much control over anything, right? It was just either feast or famine.
Mm,
And so I want to bring it back to your methodology and your philosophy about marketing, because I feel like marketing and operational rigor were two things that you really have been pounding our heads in about,
yeah.
every week. And I would love to just have your insight and your philosophy, because it's something very profound. It's something that's we've seen the effects of it. So I would love you to just explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really funny to me because I think that as artists, you guys get so caught up in the story and telling the story and getting into the nuance and the details and the creative and all that stuff, which is amazing, right? That's like what people want you for, and that's what you guys are passionate about, which is why you guys became a video production crew and essentially started creating stories and telling stories in unique formats and ways. And it's like so funny because like so much of business has to do with not why you started the business, and it's like the lopsidedness of it, right? And so when I saw the feast or famine trends of like the business, and I'm like, oh man, it's like hot when it's hot and it's not when it's not, is because there's no predictability to the process. And so operationalizing the customer predictability, as I like to call it, is so key, right? And so I think that helping you guys understand that even though you guys are passionate about doing the art, there needs to be some amount of time allocated to doing specific tasks and activities that will lead to awareness or pipeline building or discovery meetings, so that there's a continual effort of pipeline being built continuously. um, I mean, as simple as building out like the process into stages, right? That was monumental for us, right? At Flipbirds, like just like saying, hey, like we've just closed deals. As we close deals, there's no like method or madness to it, right? Like there was just like, hey, like we have someone that wants to work with us, and we like do some scoping, and then we just like sign a deal and then we like start working. And it's like, no, like there's a process to this, right? Like there's a stage, like where it's like, hey, we need to do a discovery meeting, see what they actually want, what's the criteria of what they're looking for. Discovery goes into negotiations go into contracting goes into implementation and onboarding. Like there's like even just the simple act of like forcing you guys to think about all the steps into phases has helped us calculate how much effort we need to put into the top of the funnel. Meaning, I don't want you guys to become like like full-time salespeople, but I do want you guys to like think about the sales funnel like as a mechanism. So it's really fun talking to you guys because I love that you guys are artists, and it's like really fun to talk to you guys about how, in order to continue to do the art and like force success, you have to figure out what the formula looks like to continue that deal flow, so that you guys don't have to worry about feast or famine, right? And you guys can continually be artists consistently. So there's obviously a lot of things that we've done just besides like building out a process for the sales. We've also done that for marketing. We've also done that for bite-sized tasks that the crew can do. There's like processes for engagement and referrals. Like there's all sorts of things you guys have implemented that are actionable steps that I'm hoping will continue to grow us even further this year. But that's kind of like I think that's what you're asking about, right? Like the things that
Totally.
you want to hear
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I was gonna say the whole forcing success is also a new notion to us, because being on the creative side and the artistic side, math is not something that we love, or
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
when you're talking about marketing, you're talking about sales, and you break it down into more of a formula and a number. That was, for me personally, that was mind blowing, because it was something that I always knew we needed to implement into our business, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And so when you came in and you're just like, boom, 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 this is actually what you need, it was like totally night and day for us, because we're like, holy shit, there's
Yeah.
actually a method to the madness. You don't have to guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so funny. It's so funny if you like think about how simple it is in hindsight. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I can elaborate further, because I mean, I'm assuming that most of the listeners here are probably going to be on the marketing side, but I think proving ROI and making that story and that content and that creative actually mean something tangible is going to only empower future marketers to be more effective at their jobs, right? But it's so true. But the idea is very simple, right? I mean, like when you really think about it at a high level, obviously the act of doing it is hard, and you have to have discipline and rigor and all those things, but the concept is pretty simple. Like, figure out like what your product sells at, figure out if it's profitable or not, figure out like how much money you want to make, and then figure out how, like how many people go from contracting to close, and how many people go from negotiations to contracting, how many people go from discovery to negotiate. And then you basically get a somewhat of a formula. And then to a certain degree, you can mathematically say like, hey, we need to, you know, talk to at least 20 people to get 4 deals, and then on
Mhm.
average our deals cost, our deals make this much money. So you can start building out a formula to orchestrate your success, quite frankly, right? Like, figure out your target and then work backwards and back into that goal.
Mhm.
The trick then is once you understand that concept, is how do you position that, in a way that's on brand, on messaging. And I think that's your guys' forte, right? Like, you and the
Mhm.
crew's forte. And so that's been really helpful to kind of merge our, creative and operational rigor together to create this really
Mhm.
great engine and story, because you need both. You can't just like
Totally.
mechanicalize sales, because it won't optimize, right? And then people won't
Mhm.
register the right people. So I think you do
Yeah.
need both, but it really does work well, because we have really good complementing skills and beliefs on business.
I totally agree. And I think, yeah, just seeing the two ideologies merge into this thing where it's a lot of, for us on our end, trial and error. Your process, I think, is pretty straightforward, but then taking that process and then applying it so we don't necessarily lose our identity and we don't become something that we're not, has been a really interesting evolution as well, because I can see us really starting to find our voice and our lane, and the way that, we can take your process and implement it into our style. So that's been a really cool, just a really cool evolution to witness and be a part of, because it's not easy, right? It's not easy finding that
No,
middle
it's not.
ground.
I was just going to say that, like, I think the concepts are really simple and easy to understand, like, as it relates to processing or backing into a goal. It's the execution that's really hard. And I
Mhm.
think that's where, we've had a lot of fun this last year, right? Like,
Mhm.
trying to like teach artists artists and
Yeah.
storytellers how to earmark 5 hours to doing, relationship building or BD efforts or whatever that may be. It's like,
Mhm.
no, you don't have to, like, it doesn't have to take over your life, but can you break down into chunks specific tasks and activities that you have to do continually and forever, that
Mhm.
will always allow for growth and continual
Mhm.
revenue and pipeline building? Because that's like one aspect of the business. You still have to develop great product, and you still have to be very
Yes.
creative, and you have to advance your skills. You have to like do reps, you have to take classes, you have to
Mhm.
learn, like, so there's all these
Mhm.
other things you have to do. But like, how do you like organize your life in a way where,
Mhm.
you're spending enough time on everything to keep things moving forward and growing to the macro goals that you want? And that's really, really hard, right? And as you and I intimately know, it's been a very exhilarating and exciting journey, doubling Flipbird's revenue line, and then hopefully we're gonna double it again this year, right? But um,
Totally.
that doesn't happen easily. You know that, and I know that. But I just want to make sure the listeners understand that, like, it wasn't easy. The concepts are fairly easy to understand. The execution is really, really hard.
Totally. And, to put it even in a bigger context, that's just internal shit, right? This is all
Yeah.
internal
Yeah.
steps. So I want to talk
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
we've talked about this a lot, but in this day and age, it's so hard to break through. It's noisy, everyone's vying for attention. So
Yeah.
externally, what do you think it takes for companies, for creatives or whatnot to break through the noise? Because that's, I feel like, everyone's main problem these days.
Yeah, and this is a total I'll answer this in two ways because
Yeah.
it's going to sound odd if I only answer the one side, because I do want to
Mhm.
share some tactical things that I think are happening in trends in the market that I've noticed with like the proliferation of like AI and just
Mhm.
like so many like new content creation software, right? Like there's just so much more content coming out. It's just like unbelievable how much content there is. And I don't know if you noticed, but like Instagram and TikTok just announced that they're doing subscriptions, because it's all
Mm.
about trying to find like content creators. Like it's like content, there's just an abundance of content right now, and it's like so dense, and it's so much that like one, you have to do it to a certain degree, but it also becomes harder to get to your target audience because there's so much to process and review. So I think that the biggest thing that is I'll answer it tactically and then I'll answer it more macroly. But on the micro side, because of the fact that there's so much content and it's harder to get to the ideal customer, you need to figure out what your story is, and you really need to like figure out exactly who you are and who you're not. So when you do get the opportunity to touch people, it's very clear what you do and what you don't do and who it's for. And it doesn't need to resonate with everybody like it used to. It just needs to resonate with your specific person that you want to talk to, because people are just consuming so much more content. So you need to be able to break
Mhm.
through and really like figure out a way to like touch them, and emotionally and viscerally, right? And figure out what that looks like. So that's one aspect that's tactical that I think needs to be really focused on in this next era of information. And of course, I have to plug Flipbirds, but video is going to be one of the best mediums for that. Because video, it communicates so much more than copy. It communicates so much more than visual. It's like a combination of all sorts of things, right? Like words, imagery, action,
Mhm.
colors, nuance, ambiance. There's just so much more you can communicate with video because it's just like multidimensional. And I think that that's a really powerful vehicle to get your story punched through the noise.
Mhm.
On the macro side, I also think that you need to think about marketing in new and creative ways. And I think that you need to take a very programmatic or pragmatic approach to it, and mathematically tackle the problem. So, what I like to do with my clients is really talk to them about keeping the emotions out of it and the bias out of it, because what used to work doesn't work. Like it changes so fast and so drastically with all these new things happening on these social media platforms, on all these ads and all these algorithms, and just a lot of different variations. And people's relationships are changing, people's way of consuming data is changing. Like everything's happening so much more rapidly, and it's really important to understand that like any idea could work, and really focusing on a way to do testing of ideas and optimizing for those ideas, I think, is really the future. So not discounting direct mail, like not discounting referral emails, or like tapping into your network, or doing events, or like not like email nurtures or inbound funnels. Like
Mhm.
all of those things are tactics, and I don't think there's like a silver bullet anymore. And what you
Mhm.
need to do is also figure out what works for you and what works for you the best, and try to get it into some sort of like formulaic, predictable number. Meaning like,
Mhm.
hey, if I do a field event, like I do an event for my constituents and I host it and then I talk about X, Y, and Z, that ends up costing me, $10,000 to host this. And I usually get like 4 leads out of that. Out of those 4, 1 closes. And the average deal size is $30,000 to $50,000. The net ROI is pretty good on that, right? Like
Mhm.
you can, if you can get to that point and figure that out, I think that works the best, or works better than ads, or works worse than ads. You should basically numerically figure that out, and then really
Mhm.
lean into those strategies, whether it's new age digital, or it's old school, or it's a mixture of both, or it's a new thing you
Mhm.
created. I think it really is important that you test and optimize for a growth strategy and a marketing strategy that works specifically for your business, with an
Mhm.
unemotional mathematical approach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've learned that the hard way, the unemotional mathematical part. But yeah,
Oh
no,
yeah.
to just to
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, just from personal experience, something that we've learned from you over the past 2 years is that you you see what works and then you keep adding to the mix, right? You never take away, and therefore it's not just like you're saying, it's not just one thing that you're going to do and it's always going to work. You do your outbound, and then you do your referral, you do your networking events, and then that's just outbound stuff, but then you mix that in with marketing. You have your LinkedIn, you have your Instagram, you have your social media, your newsletter. So I think we learned that you add, but you end up automating at the same time, so it's not like you're necessarily always creating more work for yourself, but you can do it, figure it out, optimize it, and then add in something new. And that's been something really profound for us as well.
Yeah, it's definitely not the artist mindset, right? Like you guys definitely like to create things and think about beautiful colors and like the
Hmm.
the 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 wabi sabi and the color grade and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, and I'm
Oh,
like,
you're learning something from us too,
oh
Wabi
yeah,
Sabi.
I'm like I know all the lingo now. Yeah, I know all the lingo. It's great. Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, like it's not about doing everything. It's about figuring out what works and then controlling how much time you're spending on it. Because like it has to be worth the time and the money. And if the
Hmm.
input is not equal to the output, like it there comes a point where it doesn't make sense. And so,
Hmm.
oh, it might make sense if it's like a passion project or it's an art piece or something like that. But like, if it's around like generating deal flow or getting ROI or marketing your business, I think that you have to really be concerted on how you allocate your time and resources because until it's infinite or until it's like much larger, you have to compete with people that have a much bigger budget or like a bigger team or more time or whatever that may be. And the fastest way to getting to what works for you is by testing more things unemotionally. And that's been like the
Hmm.
hardest thing with you guys, right? Like not necessarily like saying like don't be an artist or don't like build these cool graphics or whatever. It's just like, do we really need to spend an hour color grading that creative? Like is that hour going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really make the
yeah.
difference between, X, Y, and Z? I don't think so. And it hasn't been proven over the last year of doing this. So spend like
Hmm.
10 minutes color grading it if you must color grade it. I don't even think you should color grade it. But if you
Yeah.
must, like, let's just like temper it with the
Don't tell the crew that.
yeah, exactly. Like, why are we spending so much time on this, right? Like, it's just like for me, it's like flabbergasting because I'm like the ROI is so not there. But I also
Yeah,
get that it's also part of you guys' passion and what you guys started this business for is to like
yeah.
be
The
artists. So it's
craft.
like, yeah, it's tempering the
Yeah,
craft with the rigor, but
yeah.
that balance is what's going to make it grow, I think.
Totally. And this is also another bit of a curveball question, but okay, so it's noisy today. In 5 years, what do you think the landscape's gonna look like just in terms of marketing for small businesses and whatnot? And do you think it'll do you think it'll be businesses doing more of the same of what you're just saying of testing and optimizing, or where do you see the trend going in 5 years?
Wow, I don't know where it's going to go in 5 years. I think there's going to be all sorts of craziness that that's going to happen with the metaverse and new platforms, new ways of communicating. But I can tell you that I've seen trends even within the 15 companies that I've serviced over the last 2 years. I mean, it's not a huge number, but it's a big number for collecting some data points. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that like there is a huge push towards referrals and influencers, right? Meaning like not necessarily influencers, that's not even right, but like communities and groups,
Mm-hmm.
like getting referrals from people that you trust because there's so much information, because people are so sophisticated with their ads and their inbound funnels and their traps and all this other stuff that like the consumers are now also getting sophisticated. And so this is not just for small business. I also think this is the same for large tech companies and even big conglomerates. I think they need to start figuring out like how to tap into these like people that are trustworthy within a certain group that can be brand ambassadors for other people to buy, because I think there's so much information. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think people are buying as much as they used to via these direct kind of like typical campaigns. And I'm sure it's still happening, right? Because I mean, there's a huge ad spend budget for all these line items. But I can tell you, I can see that happening across the board, and even the tech companies that I service, that more and more people are reverting back to almost the old school, like
Interesting.
who do you know, right? Who do you know that
Yeah.
does this? And then you like, hey, like it's like, like, hey, Jordan, do you have a good mechanic like that I can use?
Mhm.
Like, and using that reference as a point, like it's not as simple as that, but like Slack groups or Discord groups
Mhm.
or Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or private signal groups or things like
Mhm.
that seem to be where a lot of the deal flow is happening, especially as
Hmm.
it relates to B2B businesses.
Hmm. That's interesting that
Hmm.
with all of this tech, it's still word of mouth and referrals that hold the most weight.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
I mean, I think it'll always hold weight, to be
It
honest with
makes
you.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'll always hold weight because until like, AI is so prolific that it like makes our buying decisions for us, like
Yeah.
there's really an end user at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? And then the end user typically is going to be a human that has emotions and
Typically.
yeah, that has human, yeah, that has feelings and emotions, and and the reality is we're pretty straightforward when it comes to like, oh, if someone else does it, then and they had a good experience, I'm gonna more
Yeah.
likely want that, right? Or
Totally.
trust it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, I like that too. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, we are human. And if you know someone that did something good and had a good experience, you're totally going to go with that versus a fancy ad that you see on Instagram or whatnot.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I still buy things on these really slick ads. I mean, when someone gets me in a
True.
good funnel, I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome, and I have to go buy this. Like Amy and I just like, yeah. Anyways, long story short, we fell prey to it even last night. Right? We're like, oh, dope, we have to get this. Like, look at that
What'd
slick
you
video, and that
buy?
was so cool. It was like
What'd
some
you
like
buy?
health drink. It's like some health drink. Green, and it's like I've seen like six of their ads already, right? And so I've seen it so many times, and I'm finally, Amy's like,
Okay.
oh, did you ever seen this thing? It looks cool. I'm like, yeah, I've seen it 6 times, and I have been interested. They have really slick advertising, and I'm like, let's do it. And who cares, right? And so
Yeah.
we went down the funnel and we did it. So it definitely still works, right?
So
And
mixture.
it's
To
still,
your original thesis, a mixture of all of it, right? Because you don't ever know
yeah.
the touch points that will actually work.
Yeah, and I think that that number has to make sense for them, right? Because there's going to be a cost for them having to touch me 6 times to like close. They're going to
Yeah.
calculate that, and hopefully they're calculating it and figuring out if it makes sense for them as a business. Because if it doesn't make sense, they probably shouldn't do it for long,
Mm.
unless it
Mhm.
makes sense in a
Mhm.
macro way, meaning like they're
Mhm.
trying to get user acquisition for the long. Anyways, long story short, it all comes down to math. It all comes down to math.
Totally.
Mathematically it can work to be a loss form, right? Like I've like I run a podcast. It's a loss form for me. Like I don't make money on it. It costs me money to actually do it. But I have, out of the 6 months I've done it, I've closed a deal that easily pays for
All of the
the
time.
6 months that I've been operating it, plus more. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like the it become a cost of acquisition that's totally worth it for me to run this podcast that costs me
Mhm.
money every single
Mhm.
month because it's already yielded a positive result for me. So I justify the
Mhm.
cost as a cost of acquisition to get a customer. I mean, obviously it
Mhm.
wasn't for that intention. I run my podcast more for parenting and personal reasons, but um, I can justify that expense in my mind through math.
Mhm. Totally. What is the most creative marketing strategy you've ever seen? Does one stand out or two?
The most creative marketing strategy. I no, I mean, I definitely like the Apple one from, the one with the rock star that like goes to I mean, just the classic one that was really cool. I like the Got Milk campaigns. Those were really funny for me growing up, watching those Got Milk ones. I don't remember Alan Burr, and then like he has the. Anyways, there's all the. I don't know if you remember those
I
commercials, but
do.
those were really funny. I like the Geico ones are funny. The I like the funny ones. I think the funny
The
ones are
funny
really
ones.
good for me. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
you know what one was really good that kind of blew me away was the Dollar Shave Club. Remember that one? That video?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
That
I
was a
remember that
good.
because after that video came out, everyone wanted Dollar Shave Club video and they wanted it to go
Yeah.
viral like that. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah,
So
that one
good
was
though.
really
That
good.
yeah. Yeah, like that. Then the initial feeling of how funny that was so good. Yeah.
Also, what's the men's Old Spice? Old Spice had a bunch of good ones for a while.
Yeah, those are really funny too. Yeah, those are
Those
really
are
good
weird.
too.
Yeah. Okay, so you like funny. That makes
I
sense.
do. Yeah, I like funny things. Yeah, I do. I think they're
Okay,
memorable, they're lighthearted, and I don't know, that's how it gets me. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's for everybody, right? But yeah,
true. True, true, true.
yeah.
Any words of wisdom or advice for young entrepreneurs, budding businesses?
Keep it simple. Don't try to boil the ocean, especially as an entrepreneur or a young person trying something. I think that was the question, right? Either an entrepreneur or
Mhm.
someone young. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah. Keep it simple. I think the biggest, not fallacy, but the biggest hurdle that entrepreneurs have as they build and scale a business is just the fact that you have very little resources in the beginning, and you're trying to do everything that a business is normally supposed to do. And so it just doesn't add up. The math doesn't add up, right? And so my advice is don't worry about it. Just pick 5 things that you think will move the needle the most and time box it and test it for 3 months, and then figure out which ones actually move the needle and which ones don't. Swap out the ones that don't with the next set of ideas and test those for 3 months, and then keep doing that. But the reality is it's better to do 5 things really well than 100 things half-assed,
Mhm.
especially as a startup or as an entrepreneur. You really want to focus on a few core things that you can do really well and impact 80% of the business versus trying to do so many things.
I was gonna say I do like the whole time stamping things because I think sometimes as an entrepreneur you get stuck on this notion of having to add things in and just keep them in, and you never realize that, oh, it's not working, I should just take it out. And so when we had implemented our growth strategy plan of here are a couple of things that we could add on to the core, and let's just do it for 3 months, see what works and switch it out, that was very, very transformational in terms of, oh, we don't have to add it and keep adding and keep adding,
Mm-mm,
and it's and then
mm-mm.
it's all this wasted energy on things that don't actually move the needle.
That's right. Yeah, like it's very unemotional, right? It's a really weird thing to do as a marketer, because I think most marketing people tend to be more creative and want to have a say in the look and feel and the messaging. But if you can take an unemotional approach and just treat it more mathematically, um, you'll be able to like run through things more quickly. But
Hmm.
definitely as an entrepreneur, right? As an entrepreneur, like
Yeah,
you're naturally going to want to do everything, and
yeah,
it's going to literally like slow you down.
yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
slow you down.
You're just,
Yeah.
yeah, you're totally gonna be exhausted.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I think that covers anything. Is there anything you want to share or go over? Because then I was just gonna say, how can people find you? Where can they listen to your podcast?
Yeah. So, you can find yeah, it's a really great question. I actually don't even know what I do anymore. I'm like creating so many things. So it's kind of funny that your title of the podcast is Meet the Creators. I um i started a pool service business, and so I launched that 10 days ago, 11 days ago. I started a bunch of different small businesses, right, just to like see if I can like do these things and kind of grow it and create value in the world in different ways than just consulting. But yeah, you can find my podcast on thegirldadshow.com. And my website is foreveryoung.agency for my consulting business. And if you're in the Austin, Texas area, I can service your pool at blueoceanps.co. And there's just like there's at least 6 other things that I've created and built. So like I won't even go into it. But right now I'm in like super creator mode, right? I'm like just building like crazy right now, and it's been so fun. So but those are the 3 main things. And if you really want to follow along, my Instagram is probably the best, because I literally overshare on there and I broadcast my life through the stories. I
Yeah.
literally overshare. I broadcast my entire day and my life. And I like there's like I don't know, I want to say like 10 or 15 stories every day, and it's just me, like no editing, just like literally hitting the recorded broadcast button. Yeah, so that's probably the best way to follow along if you want. Oh, I am actually, by the time this comes out, my newsletter should be out.
Oh,
So
cool.
this is my New Year's resolution, is I want to write more, because I've had a lot of people ask me to teach them or show them, or at least talk to them about how I built all these things last year. And I realized that there's maybe some benefit for people to follow along. So that's what I should be
Yeah,
plugging. You can edit all that other stuff out and just do this thing.
the
I'm just kidding. You
newsletter.
don't have to.
Yeah, you didn't even mention Pip too. Yeah,
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot
See,
of
we have a
you've been
software. Yeah,
really
that we're building.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've been really busy.
Yeah. So I'm launching a newsletter this year. A monthly. It's I guess it's not a newsletter. It's like almost like a journal. But what I'm going to do is basically once a month, I'm going to talk about what I'm building, what I'm doing good at, what I'm messing up on, like what's
Oh,
working, what's
cool.
not working. Like for example, like my pool service business launched on January 10th. I want to like document that journey of building it into $1 million business this year. And then I'm considering starting either an ice cream shop or a salad restaurant this year as well. So like I want to like document like what it takes to build that up, what that process looks like and how that looks like. And so if you want to follow along, I'm going to basically journal my entire journey through this year and probably ongoing, because I think it'll be really fun for me mostly, just to kind of reflect on all the things that I'm doing, and then also be able to document the steps that I took. And then hopefully people are interested that want to build something themselves. They can learn something from it, or take something away from it. And if not, it'll still be good for me. So, something I want to do and start documenting what I'm doing. So there's that.
Amazing. And if people are wondering how he does all of this in a day, I know for a fact it's just because he doesn't sleep. He's actually human. He's
That's right.
actually human and not a robot. He just doesn't sleep.
That's right. That's right. You came and visited me, so you intimately know. You intimately know how much I go. Yeah. That's so
and
funny.
and and he's a husband with two kids as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like hanging out with you, no excuses are ever they're not valid because
Yeah.
you have 11 million businesses on top of everything. So it's quite inspiring to have you in our lives. But
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you for
so
saying
much.
that. Thank you so much for having
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything, for your time, for your knowledge, and I hope everyone listening learns a little bit and give Young a follow because his journey is quite amazing. And I feel like y- this isn't even really the climax of things, right? You're just kind of ramping up right now. So
I think that this year will be bigger than last year for sure for me. Yeah. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm very excited about all the things that I've learned from consulting, and to be very very um full circle or cathartic. I don't even know what the right word is, but I learned a lot of it from working with Flipbirds and you.
awesome.
I mean, I never in my wildest dreams, like thought about working with a service business, and working with you guys has been so fun and so engaging, and so incredibly enlightening, right? Working with the polar opposite of me, like really makes you think about the world in a different way, right? You guys are very opposite of me. And so it's been
Very
really
opposite.
good in like shaking my mind and thinking about new things in new ways. And I just never would have thought of starting a service business like a pool company or an ice cream shop. But I mean, a lot of that comes from the fact that I was working with you guys, and it just like started showing me like all these different ways to make money that's not tech. And so,
Hmm.
um, yeah. So thank you too. Yeah, thank you for letting me be
Awesome.
part of your journey.
Amazing. Well, we will chat with you soon.
Okay, talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Meet the Creators. I hope you found value in today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and please share with a friend.